Dodge. We welcome in 1320 Kings Insider and newest member of the Black Bottle Boys. You look sharp there today, buddy. Our man James Ham here.
I know he got some Travis Scott's on with those right now. I know he does.
Our goal, James, is to get you in a showy pair of sneakers and joggers as your time with us progresses.
You got 5 racks, James? You got 5 racks? I can give you these to wear.
I don't have. No, I do have. I have some Jordans.
James, do you know what 5 racks are?
No, I don't know what 5 racks are.
Okay,
that's okay. That's okay.
It's still new. We're working through it. That's all right. It's all right.
$5,000.
Oh, got you.
Every rack is $1,000.
Hey, I have a buddy, shout out Corey Takahashi. He worked with me at Copeland Sports for years.
Oh, that's downtown?
I worked at downtown. I worked at 5 different Copelands.
Wow.
But he worked with me at downtown and at the Roseville Galleria for a long time. And he was a Jordan collector. So size 10.5, I believe. Anytime a pair of Jordans came in, he would have corporate would send like 3 extra pairs for him.
Wow.
He would buy. So he had a room at his parents' house with well over 1,000 pair of Jordans. He was in like Soul magazine. They came and did a photo shoot of all of his stuff. So yeah. And if he did wear a pair, which he would only have 1 pair out of a lot that he would wear, he would, when he was done wearing them, he still does this. He scrubs the soles, he scrubs everything, he cleans them off perfectly, and then slides the paper back in, puts them back in the shoebox, wrap them up. And so, yeah, I have a couple of pair of Jordans, but like I have some patent leather, not the 11s, but the ones with like the sort of weird mesh over the shoelaces. Yeah, I have those. They still look brand new.
What number is that? Is that like patent leather on the toe?
I don't think it's a number. I think it's a
it's a number. No, it's one of it's a true Jordan.
Did they have the is that the one where you take the cover off the laces? There's like a cover, because those had a patent leather toe.
It has a cover over the laces, but it's part of it and it's mesh and it stays on. So it flexes.
Boy, James got them exclusives. You can't even get these. Oh, let's go.
Yeah. So yeah,
as the dope one says here in the chat, we're gonna have James dressing like a drug dealer in the 80s.
James Meach.
we're gonna have James showing up to that next interview with Luke Walton like Luke is going to ask some questions the next time. By the way, they're 19s as the chat's jumping.
The 19s.
That was a really enjoyable conversation with you and Luke Walton that posted earlier in this week. I really enjoyed listening to that. That was good stuff.
Thanks, man. I would have liked to have gone longer. There were some things that I would have liked to have hit on. One of those things is not Marvin Bagley. I think that question has been asked and answered like multiple times. So that's not something I was looking to delve into. But like overall, he had like a ticking clock. He had dinner reservations and we were trying to get it done like in this small window. And still, I think it's like 28 minutes. That's pretty good to get an NBA head coach to sit down for a conversation like that. And you just never know where it's going to kind of go. I thought the stuff about his dad was really funny. Like he's like the same thing. Like sometimes I have to do with my dad. Like you're looking at your watch, you're like, how much time do I have? Okay, sorry, Dad, you're getting sent to voicemail. I don't have 20 to 30 minutes to have a conversation. Yeah, so that was cool. Like Rico Hines, Doug Christie stuff, I thought was really interesting.
The Doug Christie stuff was really, really good. I love the line about it reminded him of when Steve hired him.
Yeah.
When Steve hired Luke. Like, I thought that was just such a great, it was like, oh, okay. Like, he really believes in Doug as a coach. That's what I took away from that. The fact that he would relate it to his own experience with Steve Kerr. I thought that was tremendous.
Yeah. And if you talk to Doug, like, you have to understand this. Like, Doug has, it's almost like an earthy view of basketball. It's almost like, I don't want to say like, it's different, like Doug isn't like a crystals guy, but it's almost like that. Like there's something different. Like, a way he looks at the game that's totally different. And, you know, he likes to bring like the art of war he brought to DeMarcus Cousins years ago. I remember that. Those are things that Doug would bring to the table, that he wants to educate guys in a different way, have them think about basketball in a different way, have them think about the finer nuances in a different way. He was he still is super close with Pete Carrill. They still have conversations all the time, but that's what Doug wants to be. He wants to be the guy, almost like a Yoda on the staff, where you can come to him and he can help you get through some things, or he sees some things that would help you and he tries to walk you through them. So I think Doug was a phenomenal hire. He's different. I mean, and the other thing is Doug hasn't gone through the conventional training that a lot of assistants do.
Mhm.
So, you know, he still has to learn that it's one thing to be coached on a specific, you know, like defensive set. It's a whole nother thing to be in that defensive set, teach that defensive set. And that's where Doug, you know, learning terminology and all that stuff. But he's one of the hardest workers you're ever going to see. He has a notebook that he's filling out at all times with information. And so, yeah, I think, like, again, I think he can be a tremendous, tremendous hire, especially if we get to see a couple of years of Doug really sink his teeth into a group and start having guys who really like follow what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah. James, what is your views on Luke Walton's coaching career? And I up to this point, because, you know, I kind of defend him a little bit, but at the same time, I know that if it doesn't get done this year, this is just my guess, like, he's probably going to have to go. You know what I mean? Like, I understand how it goes, but I don't know how good of a coach he is, but fairly or unfairly, it seems like every year up until maybe this season, there's always been some kind of circumstance. Like, he hasn't had, I feel, the best setup to be successful. Even when you go back to the Lakers years, the one time he did, he had LeBron. They were playing really well. LeBron gets hurt, then he gets fired. But other than that, he's dealing with, like, when he first got to the Lakers, there's a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds. You're not winning in the league with that. All the things that happened the first 2 seasons with COVID, India trip, personnel, whatever, here in Sacramento. I feel like he hasn't had a fair shake to find out if he's a good coach or not, up until maybe this season. What do you think about his career up until this point?
It's funny. I just literally on my drive home from shoot around, I had this exact conversation with Brendan Nunes from the King's Herald. Like, we literally, because he asked me this question, like, how he actually, I think he phrased it. If you were asked on ESPN 1320 by these guys, what would your answer be?
That's funny.
And I was, you know, it's complex. Like, I have the same opinion that you just laid out. I don't know. I think I have a standard that I look at with every head coach, and I think I've had 7. Like, really, like Westfall, Smart, Malone, Corbin, Carl, Yeager, and now Walton. Could I have an 8th by the end of the season? Anything is possible. This thing could spin out, and, you know, they could be on pace to win 27 games, like at the All-Star weekend, and things could spin out. I have no idea. We never have any idea. That's why you play the games, right? But I also believe that he has not had just the basics. Like, the first season was just a mess. Like, and it wasn't just India. I don't want to just blame that. It was that Marvin Bagley, one of the fastest power forwards in the league, breaks his thumb in game 1 with like 3 minutes left. He got karate chopped by Kelly Oubre, and you put Nemanja Bjelica, literally the slowest power forward in the NBA, as his replacement. And then right before game 10, De'Aaron Fox, we showed up to practice, and Fox was actually like limping off the court when we got there. And then it looked like nothing. And then like maybe a half hour later, we found out he had a grade 3 ankle sprain, which is like a complete detachment of the ligament. And he missed, I think, 17 games. Like, and he should have missed like probably 25 or 30. He came back way quicker than anyone thought. Still, like, the way that season worked out, it was a mess early on. And then again, you replaced De'Aaron Fox, fastest point guard in the league, with Corey Joseph, one of the slowest point guards in the league. Like, just the continuity of players that you had to your bench, like, nothing made sense. Like, I think this mix of players is so much better. Like, if you need to go up against a big guy, you've got Alex Len. If you need to go up against a strong arm guy, you got Tristan Thompson. If you have a guard that's blowing up, well, I'm going to throw Davion at you. If we got a small forward that's starting to do some things, I'm going to send Mo Harkless at you. There's just like there's more tools in the toolkit for Walton to throw at things. Now, is his roster complete? No, I wouldn't say that at all. But if we go back to that first season, I thought that they were playing much better midway through the season. I thought he had made some crucial moves in that year, including benching Dwayne Dedman for Rashawn Holmes. We got to the midway point of that season, and he benched Buddy Hield for Bogdanovich. And so they were rolling when the pandemic hit, and everything after that, I think, threw out the window, like the bubble, everything else. And it's another one of those things. Like, how many times have the Kings just barely missed? But if the bubble never happened, I don't think Vlade Divac gets fired, and things change. And then last season, if Vlade Divac's not there, I guarantee you that Bogdanovich is still on this roster going into last season. And what would this team look like differently? They missed the play-in by 2 or 3 games. What would they look like if they would have had Bogdanovich or Alex Len or Kent Bazemore?
But Tyrese probably wouldn't have been here.
Well, no, it's very possible. Tyrese fell to the Kings in the draft. Like, anyone would have taken Tyrese at number 12. That's the way it goes. I mean, like, you would have had
like anyone.
Well, yeah,
like
because
even the general manager you're referring to.
yes, because consensus wise, like, when you got to number 10, and the Phoenix Suns, who literally get away with the worst draft picks of all time, when they drafted Smith at number 10, it was like, okay, first of all, who made that pick? Because they already didn't pick up that guy's 3rd-year option. I mean, he's already done with the team. But if you could have had Tyrese Halliburton training behind Chris Paul, like, what in the world were they thinking? But when you got to number 11, there were 2 dudes on the board, and it was either Devin Vassell or Tyrese Halliburton were going to fall to number 12. So yes, I do believe that even still, that at that position, that Vlade would have done that, because you would have Corey Joseph coming off the books. You would have had the ability to, have a guy training for a year to be your backup 1-2. So I think so. So again, like, I think it's complicated. Like, I want to be harsh on him and say, why did this happen? But then you walk into last season, and you guys and I have discussed this a million times. That team was like, it lacked so much depth. Like, I don't even know how you had an active roster for half the games. And as soon as they had one player get hurt, like, they lost 9 in a row. That's what happened every single time. And so, like, again, I want to judge him harshly, but he ended up winning like a prorated version of 35 wins. And he's got the 2nd highest win percentage in Sacramento Kings history behind Rick Allen. And you're just like, the whole time you're like, I just don't know. I don't know if he's the answer, if he's not. But you know what I do want to see? I actually want to wait and see how it works out, because switching head coaches all the time is just recipe for disaster. It is. It's like, that's what horrible franchises do. It's what the Kings, as a bad franchise, have done for 15 years. They just keep replacing guys. And I mean, what is this? Only the 2nd coach, the 3rd coach since Adelman to get into their 3rd season as a head coach.
That's absurd.
Wow.
That is so absurd.
Jaeger is the only one to finish a 3rd season, and we don't even know, what would have been if Jaeger doesn't get fired. They probably make the playoffs that year. So all these little near misses, like, where this streak could have ended,
Mike Malone, we'd already have a championship.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk more with James Ham. I'm glad you brought up depth. Kenny and I were just talking about something. We're talking about the roster, the rotations, what Luke's doing, and it kind of left us scratching our heads. So we're going to talk about that when 1320 Kings insider James Ham returns with us next here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. All right.
How you doing, James?
I'm good. Yeah, I actually people know my boy Corey Takahashi. Yeah, in the shoe world,
That
he's
sounds familiar. That name
he's
sounds familiar.
very well known. My boy
Okay.
DDT.
It sounded familiar when you said it. I was like, I'm supposed to know this person. I feel like I do. That's interesting.
He's a like he. I mean, at this point, he probably has 12 or 13. He is an expert in all things Jordans. Yeah, I mean, just incredible. And like he's my dude. Like, we had James's birthday extravaganza for my 30th. And he and one of my other buddies, we flew to New York City, got a rental car, drove to the Hall of Fame, came back, caught a game at Yankee Stadium, and just had a good time. Yeah, so he's a good dude. We've been friends for a long, long time. But yeah, if there's a Jordan that you need, the problem is you got to have the same size, right?
Yeah.
Like,
lucky for all of us. That's how I've gotten so many shoes. I share the same size with a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I have little feet.
That happens.
Namely Carol Lawson. That's how I've gotten so many. Is I share the same shoe size.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
And
so,
those 19s, those are the shoes that you have. The 19s, fire. You
Yeah.
still got them?
oh yeah, they're upstairs. Yeah.
Who'd you
Yeah,
got? The
lot of
white
shoes.
one. They're the white and grays.
No, I have the all black, the black with the red.
James seems like a black shoe guy.
Fire.
Yeah, like I have now I have a Timberland hookup. So one of my guys at Copeland's, I was on the floor one time and this lady said, "Hey, I'd like to offer you a job. Like, I love your customer service." And I'm like, no, I'm about to leave and go back to college. But I got somebody for you. And I gave her one of my guys, and he went on to turn that into a Timberland rep situation. And so, Timberland has like your boots and all that stuff, but they have a high-end shoe line on top of that. And so I have, I don't know, 6 pair of boots or slip-ons, like slip-ons or boots from Timberland. And they're sick. They look like baseball gloves, a lot of them. And I even have a couple waterproof versions of boots, which are nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love some Timbs. I need to get a new pair. I got a recent new pair. Got to get a new pair.
Yeah. Well, if you had smaller feet, you could just have my Jordans. I don't care. I never wear them. Like, yeah, they look almost brand new.
Those, I don't think those are coming out. And I like, if you put those on StockX, James, you could probably get, I don't want to exaggerate it, but you can get a few hundred for those.
Yeah.
Jordan 19s. Those are.
I played in a basketball league wearing, I think they're the T-Max with the zip up the front. They kind of look like Darkwing Duck. They look like Daffy Duck.
Those were the T-Max, I think.
And they were like, I had only worn them like 2 or 3 times. I came down on a dude's foot and snapped my left ankle, going up for a rebound. And yeah, so they never they've probably been worn 3 times, 4 times total, hiding upstairs. Yeah.
James, $700. You can get those. You can sell those for right now.
Even worn? Well, I don't even know if I don't think I still have the box. I had the box forever. Maybe the box is still here. Yeah.
Those are cold. The black ones are actually going for $532.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I think they're 9.5s. Yeah. So
those are some dope shoes.
Yeah, it's wild how one thing you can't do in Jordans is play basketball in them.
No, unless you're a 6'6" shooting guard.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And you're playing indoors.
That's about it.
Yeah, I felt so bad for people who bought those shoes thinking that A, that their kids would play in them, or B, that they would last more than like 2 weeks on the blacktop.
Hang on, guys. 1 second. We're coming back. Indeed, you can check us out on the Odyssey app, or you can check us out on twitch.tv/ESPN1320, youtube.com/ESPN1320. Kings Insider James Ham with us here as we gear up for the Sacramento Kings and the Charlotte Hornets. James, kind enough to join us here on a game day. We were talking about the similarities of these two teams which we'll dive into here in a minute. But Kenny and I were speculating. Hey, so someone in the chat said, hey, Terrence Davis going to detonate tonight. And we speculated as to whether that was going to be before the game during his pregame workout or whether he actually got on the floor. And we talked about, because you and I were both second night of a back-to-back, Luke can't run 8 guys out there again. And he, in fact, did. And as I start to look at this roster like a little bit deeper, and I admittedly took Marvin Bagley out of the equation, I don't know who like needs to be out there more. The only guy I'd really, really like to see just to know what he could do is Chimezie Metu. But once you get past the Alex Len or Terrence Davis, or Alex Len or Tristan Thompson, and then what you're going to do with Terrence Davis, I don't know what's after that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, like I was having this conversation earlier. Once you like, who's going to play tonight? So again, Brett Huff and I had this discussion earlier. If you people know Brett Huff out there in the Twitter universe. Yeah. So anyway, he was wondering if like Len or Tristan Thompson would play against his team. And this might be one of those games where Chimezie Metu makes so much sense because he is big and he's physical and he can leap. So when you're going up against Miles Bridges, like who fits against Miles Bridges? Do you go Alex Len and hope that, you don't just get run around, or do you go with Tristan Thompson? Again, Tristan Thompson could get put on a poster, although he'll throw you down. But you know what I mean? Chimezie Metu might be physically a better matchup. And people go, well, what about Marvin? Like, no, like as far as physically, like the athleticism and strength of Chimezie Metu makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not saying Chimezie is going to play. Chances are they're just going to, use Mo and use, I talked to Mo today at shoot around, but use Mo, use Harrison Barnes to try to slow down some of that athleticism. But this is a fun team that's coming in. Like Charlotte is absolutely a blast to watch. LaMelo is so much better than I thought he would be, especially after going through like pre-draft interviews and stuff with him, being on calls with him. Literally the worst interview. There's only one other guy who's even remotely close to LaMelo Ball as far as how bad the interview was with the media during pre-draft buildup. And it was like 2 or 3 times we had him on calls and it was just so bad. The only other guy was Michael Carter Williams that was like not good at all.
I actually remember that. I remember the Michael Carter Williams stuff.
Yeah. Michael Carter Williams told us like he got done. He'd missed almost all of his shots. He actually had broken down like emotionally, like in his workout with the Kings with other players. And then he talked to the media and he said, yeah, I'm like Jason Kidd, but not like the old, like janky Jason Kidd, but like the good Jason Kidd, like from, I'm like, oh, and then,
when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we walked out of there going, oh, that was bad. Like hit you in the head with a shovel bad. Like it was not good.
Not to interrupt you, James, but what was LaMelo's deal? Was it like maybe a disinterest or like what made his so bad?
Yeah, I mean, partially it was disinterest. It was like 2-word answers, not even like 3-word answers, which like that's hard to do. Because I don't even think he said yes or no. It was just like it was bad. Like the whole thing was like everyone walked away going, "Holy cow!" But I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes that doesn't matter. Like how you present yourself, it doesn't matter. And Lonzo is always, he's like an introvert. He's always been super quiet. You see their dad and you think that they're going to be like these crazy noisy people, but Lonzo, like even being in the UCLA locker room when they came through for the road to the Final Four when they were in Sacramento, like he's just super quiet. And they had was it Bryce? His dad was a coach.
Bryce,
maybe.
On UCLA.
On UCLA, yeah, it's not Bryce
point guard. He was actually,
his dad was a coach.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was the one who fielded all the questions, and when you went to Lonzo, it was like, super quiet, like 1-2-word answers, and then that's not kind of what you got from LaMelo. His was almost like a little bit of clowning. I thought coming out of it, he was either so arrogant or just like he had no idea what he was doing. But he's a heck of a player. He's fun to watch, and his length and athleticism and just his court vision is crazy. We didn't truly get to see what he would look like coming into the league just because of his path was so strange.
Yeah. Damian had some numbers that that shocked the heck out of me about this Charlotte team, about how they're almost like the Kings of last year, where they're one of the top scoring teams in the league and one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And I kind of made the connection, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, where they have these great individual players that are fun to watch. They get up and down or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, they're still kind of young, where they don't understand the virtues of playing defense. They think they can outscore everybody. And I feel like the Kings, I hope, knock on wood, they've moved out of that phase after what happened last year. Like, they got their heads kicked in on the defensive end last year, and they're like, we can't do this again. Like, we have to do something else. And I feel like they're, in a sense, a year ahead of Charlotte with that mentality. Is that kind of what you've seen from the Hornets? They're just like, well, we get buckets, so that's all we need to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun, but you're right. Like, that style of basketball, I mean, it's entertaining. Like, when you're in the NBA, the worst thing you can be is boring and bad. You can be a bad team, but as long as you're exciting, then you can kind of get away with selling tickets and, selling jerseys and all that stuff. If you're boring, and you're bad, then it's just, people turn it off. Like, I think for a long time, Utah has been pretty boring. Like, even you can go back to Stockton Malone. They're very just like, they pick and rolled you to death. It's just the same thing again and again and again. That's boring. But when you're good, like, people kind of forget that. And so, like, when it comes to like the defensive side of the ball, you're right. They probably are behind the Kings where the Kings were. And they're going to try to outscore you. It's what the Kings tried to do for a long time for the last 2 years. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you catch somebody flat footed. But it also lends itself to like gigantic swings. So they can be up by 20 and blow a 20-point lead. Again, which is what we
Which
saw with
they
the Kings
have.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kings. Yeah, it's like, it's on your tombstone there for the 2020-21 season. Yeah, no lead is safe. Yeah.
And that fits with Charlotte too. I think we saw, isn't that what happened with Charlotte the other night against Golden State? Weren't they up on Golden State?
No, because the Golden State was close, and then Golden State ran away from
Then
it.
they ran away with it. Okay.
But I think Cleveland was a game like that, where they were up on Cleveland, and Cleveland kind of tracked them down and came back to win. And there was another game like that as well. I can't remember.
Well, I think it's the mark of a young bad team. I mean, it's what we saw from New Orleans. Like, and that's where I think you might be right that the Kings are a step ahead, because the second the Kings turned the screws in the fourth quarter and started playing defense, they just like ran that team over. I mean, they held the Pelicans to 12 points in the fourth quarter. Some of that's missed shots, some of that's, on the other team, but some of that is because you played really aggressive and you played defensively and your shifts were good and you got in passing lanes. You started to pick up some steals. That's one thing this team isn't doing, which is totally baffling to me, how they're like 28th in the league in steals, and 28th in the league in steals, and they're in the top 10 in pace. So just think, if they had more live ball turnovers, their pace would even go up further. You could get a lot more scoring opportunities off of those types of plays. But yeah, it's a process. Like, when I talk about this, it's not like the Kings are the only ones who have to learn how to compete. And then once you learn how to compete, you got to learn how to compete in the fourth quarter. And then once you learn how to compete in the fourth quarter, you got to figure out how to win games. And then once you figure out how to win games, you got to figure out how to win consistently. That's a process that like so many teams go through. It's not just like the Kings are the only team that do this. And it's the good teams that once they get to that next stage where they understand how to go through that process quickly and get into the season quickly, and all of a sudden they're already winning games, that's the teams that consistently win. And then they start building winning cultures and all that stuff. So I think that this should be a fun game. This should be a good, entertaining game where two teams that really don't know any better part of the time are just going to be going all over the place, up and down the court. And I want to see Fox he had a good start. He had a solid game, and it wasn't just like over the top wonderful. It was really efficient and strong. I want to see him build on that and maybe have one of those breakout games.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how nuts King's Twitter would go if De'Aaron's breakout game of the season was tonight against LaMelo Ball? Like, and it's just all of a sudden now it's a De'Aaron Fox war on all the Ball brothers.
Yeah, because
I would love that.
Even Fox, didn't he drop like 39 on Lonzo in
college?
in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, the UCLA Kentucky game. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are like, it's Bryce Alford. Thank you. It's
Bryce.
Steve Alford's son. Yeah. So anyway, I would love it because that's what you're kind of hoping for. But it's totally possible because LaMelo doesn't play. He's not like a lockdown defender. He is kind of like his brother, where he's long and he's rangy and he's bigger than he looks. And then especially once you get up against him, you're like, okay, he is much bigger than you think he is. And so that's a challenge. It'll be a challenge for a guy like Davion, which I think that's going to be fun. And, we didn't get to see, I think we only saw one matchup last year with Halliburton and Ball. And the one matchup, I don't think Halliburton I think he was in sort of a rookie wall moment.
Yeah.
So like, I would like to see that as well. Like the two guys that were really, for the most part during the whole season, were the best of the best from the rookie class.
Speaking of Tyrese Halliburton with our guy James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider, his fingerprints, his DNA was all over that game on Wednesday. And as much as I feel this team is different when De'Aaron Fox is cooking and he's scoring like we expect him to, they're also pretty different when Tyrese Halliburton is out there doing the things that had us falling in love with them all of last season. And I thought he was starting to play better leading into that game on Wednesday, kind of quietly. But the game on Wednesday was like the breakout. Oh, season started. I'm here. Hopefully. That's what we hope. How much different is this team when he's out there defending the way he is, passing the ball the way he is, and being aggressive with a shot?
Yeah, that was his first game this season over 20 points, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's pretty startling. And Luke talked about it in post game. He said, I've been like imploring Tyrese Halliburton that like, we want your imprint on this team, his personality. He wants that on this team. And it's this, like, I don't want to say happy go lucky. It's, first of all, he's so intelligent. And that comes across every single time you talk to him. But it's just a basketball IQ thing that he brings. And it's a joy for the game that he brings that's what Luke's looking for. He's looking for that, that just, I don't know. He's the whole package, right? We talked about, in the pre-draft buildup, like I think I wrote that season, I wrote 22 mock drafts because it was so extended, right?
Yeah.
Like the draft didn't happen until
that
like
is
October.
Commitment.
Yeah, like it was something like 80 million page views, but yeah, there was a commitment there. And I needed to be committed afterwards because it's not fun to just move things around and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. I kept saying, if it translates, he is going to be really, really, really good. And you just didn't know. You didn't know if that the shot was awkward, but someone who, watched Kevin Martin all the way through his career is like, well, that doesn't matter. Like Kevin Martin had the strangest shot ever. Now, if he was Lonzo Ball, who had a strange shot and it clearly didn't translate early in his career, I think that's different. But everything about him was like, okay, he can get you 5 rebounds. He can get you 5 assists. He can get you 2 steals. He can get you a block. But in that game the other night, he had 4 steals. He had 2 blocks. He's actually had a bunch of blocks already this season. I think he's second on the team in blocks. It's either him or Alex Len. They're like neck and neck, but like the dude is just rangy and long, and he's got really good balance. And we haven't seen that like signature breakout game where he drops 25 or 30, but I don't think that matters. I think he's a guy that, as much as De'Aaron Fox like is the guy who stirs the drink, I think he's going to be that guy as well. And I'll point this out too. Like in the conversation with Luke and the conversation with Tyrese and the conversation with De'Aaron the other night following the game. Each of them in different ways, like they either talked about or showed different styles of leadership. And I think we get so tied up in De'Aaron Fox has to be this, he has to be this. He can be a leader without saying a word just by dominating on the court. And Tyrese can be a leader by like bringing that love of the game and that spirit that he has. And Tristan Thompson can be a leader by being a guy who keeps the room light and who directs traffic and who holds people accountable. Harrison Barnes can be a leader by the way that he conducts himself both on and off the court. There's a lot of different ways that you can be a leader. And I think that so many people get tied up and they want this one specific type of thing from a player. And when that player doesn't give them that, or he drops a bunch of F-bombs and they think, well, half the people are like, well, that was leadership. I love it. That's my point guard. And another half are like, everything he said is counter to anything I wanted to hear. Like, like there is no right way to do this. And each of these guys have different personalities. And I think that we're going to see that there's potential for the Kings to have like 7 leaders and for all of them to lead together and to be really good. And you don't have that one LeBron James voice or one Chris Paul voice, but you got a bunch of guys who hold each other accountable. I mean, one of the best leaders in the game right now is Steph Curry. And he's an introvert. He's quiet, like, but that is his team and everyone knows it. Draymond can run, can talk all he wants. Everyone knows that that's Steph's team. And so, again, we need to get away from this conceived notion of what it is to be a leader and who can be a leader and who's not being a leader and who is. At the end of the day, I think all of them have shown leadership in trying to get De'Aaron Fox through his early season struggles. And that's good. Everyone can be a leader.
It's funny how often we've been hearing the term aggressive this so far in this young season. You mentioned Luke Walton imploring, they want Tyrese Halliburton's handprints all over, this team. They want to be a big part of everything they're doing. De'Aaron said something similar, just in a much more not suitable for work way when he was talking about he was pushing Tyrese Halliburton to shoot the ball more. So it feels like, I mean, we've heard we want Harrison to be more aggressive. We've heard we want Tyrese to be more aggressive. De'Aaron is just starting to find his way. It feels like, of all things, in a dramatic twist of events here, the team is trying to find itself offensively versus trying to find itself defensively.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hands out. Like, I think, like we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. Like, there are games where I think that Buddy inadvertently like sucks the air out of the room on the court. Like, it's just too much. You can't. But the moment we see him kind of take a step back, and he had 9 shots in the last game, and he was exceptional. Like, some of the stuff Buddy Hield was doing on the court, I was like, okay, Buddy, I've never seen you do that. Like the hustle, the defensive stuff that he was doing, the fact that he went to the rim. What he ended up scoring, like 17 points or 16 points, whatever it was, like he gave you so much, and it didn't have to be him shooting 14 threes. I think when he does shoot 14 threes, he takes some of the confidence away from the rest of the guys. I think it's part of the reason why Terrence Davis is basically just faded away, because he just can't get enough. He can't get enough looks, and he can't get enough like he can't catch a rhythm because he just doesn't have the opportunities, and he's a guy who needs that.
Right.
I thought that this last game was one of those moments where, like, okay, look, you're starting to see what this team could look like if they're all firing on all cylinders. Harrison Barnes does not have to score 27 a game for this team to be good. It would be nice if Fox could score 25 a game, but he doesn't have to score 25 a game in order for this team to be good. But he doesn't have to shoot 14 shots. This team has enough depth of talent, not just, multiple players, but different looks and different things that they can do, that this team can score. So eventually I think they're going to be just fine. Again, I'll tell you this too. Like, we get so caught up in, and you hear this word small sample size. I'll explain this. This is small sample size in a nutshell. On Sunday, the Kings were 6th in the NBA, according to Basketball Reference, in pace. After Sunday's game on Tuesday, they were 3rd. After Wednesday's game, they were 7th. Like, that is what a small sample size is. We're It's 8 games into the season. We don't know who they are yet. We don't know, like, they could have a stinker where they drop to 12, or they could be incredible and have this fast-paced game against Charlotte, which we're all expecting, and all of a sudden they're first in the league in pace. We just have to take a step back and say, okay, like, we have to get more of a sample size. We have to see this team play longer and let them simmer in the pot a little bit more and see how they look once everyone is firing and everyone's having a good game. And then maybe you got something.
One more thing about Wednesday night's game. Damien and I, we talked about it yesterday. And tell us if you agree or not. The way that game went, where it was a team that on paper, I always say this all the time, like, anything could happen in the NBA, but if you're playing your A game and this team is playing their A game, you should beat them. That's how I equate it. So that's what was going on with the Pelicans, but they just couldn't shake them. And the Pelicans end up going on like a 12-0 run and go up by 6 midway through the third. I believe the last couple of years, last year, the year before, maybe even the Jaeger year, I think the Kings lose that game. There's something about those moments when they couldn't shake a team and the team, kind of builds their confidence up, hits some shots and takes a lead where the Kings can't shake that. And not only did they shake it on Wednesday, they ran away from the Pelicans. Do you agree you've seen as much Kings basketball lately as anybody? Is that a game they don't win last year or the year before or something like that?
Oh, it's very possible. Yeah, I mean, for the last 15 years, it's a game that again, we talked about trap games. I don't believe in trap games. I believe that you either come out and you play or you don't. And a lot of times this team, it doesn't matter who they're playing, they just don't come out and play right. I think that this team in particular has some of that sort of depth and character that maybe they can, like, overcome something. And I think one of the moments, like, they had just blown their lead, right? And New Orleans came back. And Luke talked about this, like, Tristan Thompson, like, they go to, after Rashawn Holmes gets tossed from the game, they go to Tristan Thompson, and you're looking at a guy who hasn't been playing that often. And he's only going to get a small window. And in 5 minutes, I don't think he had a rebound. He didn't have a point. I think he had one personal foul. It didn't matter. That was the 5 games that game changed. He changed the entire direction of the game in 5 minutes, where he did not put up any stats. And that is leadership. And Walton even said it afterwards, like, he knew he was not going to play. He knew the game plan 100%. He stepped on the floor. He was ready to play. He was ready to fill in. He's ready to not go out and score a bunch of points or go grab a bunch of rebounds. Go win the game. Go play winning basketball. And that's where I think that this team is slightly different. Again, I talked to Mo Harkless earlier. How many games this season does Mo Harkless you look at the box score afterwards and you're like, I do not remember Mo Harkless being on the floor for 29 minutes. And you're thinking, oh, that's horrible. He didn't score a bunch of points. And then you think to yourself, I also don't remember Mo getting posterized. I don't remember him getting beat on a back cut. I don't remember him leaving a guy in a corner and giving up a wide open 3. Which I think Davion got caught a couple of times in that Pelicans game, leaving his dude wide open and giving up the corner 3 ball and got burnt a couple of times. And I'm not saying that's a rookie thing. He's got to get through that. But that's what having some of these guys on the court means. They are doing what they're doing, and they're doing it like almost in obscurity, but it impacts the team's ability to win a game. And so 28 minutes, I don't know, 22 minutes, I'd rather see of a guy like Mo Harkless, just because I think some guys can give you more. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how many wins you have at the end of the season. It doesn't matter if Mo Harkless scores 6 points in 28 minutes a game. That doesn't matter. Just if you win 35 games or you win 42 or you win 46, that's what matters. And I think that's what some of these players bring to the table.
That's our man, James Ham. James, we appreciate you so much. We're going to be hearing a lot from you. There's a very busy schedule ahead for the Sacramento Kings, with a couple of games this weekend, and then they're right back at it with their second back-to-back on Sunday and Monday. So we will talk to you next week. We'll continue to be on the lookout for the Kings Beat podcast. If you want to check out James' writing, check out his pinned tweet at James Ham MB.